Yeah, I've been waiting for this.
Hello everyone, it's Press Any Button and we are back in Unity for another action adventure tutorial. Today we're going to be covering those sick aerials so that we can style on our enemies. I'm just going to be explaining how you can implement those into your game, and it's going to heavily rely on what we've done in the previous part. So if you've just come into this project, you're going to want to look at the previous video just to get a real understanding of the kind of logic we're going off of and the systems that we're working with in terms of our combos. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. We're going to go into Blender, and I'm just here just to explain. You're going to want some new animations. So I made some new animations. This is for what you call a stinger. These are my aerial combos. That's pretty much it. So we go, so make sure that it's in your timeline of animations as we discussed in the last part, and make sure you import those animations like we talked about, just allocating the right frames where they're meant to be in here and then adding them in. Apply that and they will appear in your animator. Now I'm cheating as always. I've gone ahead and I've already got my animations here. You saw the demonstration. We've already got this set up. So to be honest, you know that this stuff is going to work. Now how are we going to make it work? Well, we're going to have to sort this all out in Visual Studio. So here I am with my player move script in Visual Studio, and we've just made a couple of changes to it, a couple of additions. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make a public game object, and you're going to call that Stinger Missile. This is going to be the object that is instantiated when you click the Stinger button, and much like our hit missile, it's going to travel out, it's going to be invisible, it's just going to act as that hitbox. Now we go down to void update, and under if grounded we have this little patch of script over here. So it's very similar to what we have up here. I've just taken a couple of things out, but it's essentially the input.getDown stuff with the counter and with that ball for our animation. So this time we have the key code mouse down, and that means when I right click, it's going to set this stinger animation to true. So it's going to play this stinger animation after I've set it up and made the transitions for it. And then it's going to instantiate, and instead of hit missile, it's going to instantiate stinger missile. Usually we'd have hit missile here, but now it's that new game object that we're going to create in a second called stinger missile. Hit spawn, hit position, all that stuff, that can stay where it is. And then we have player body.add force, transform.forward, hit momentum. So this line of script is just going to move us a smidge forward, just as we had for our other combo script. And then we have some calculations for our counter. We're going to add 1 each time we click within our max delay time period. Great, so we leave all this stuff that doesn't need to be touched. Just make sure that this is done. Just do it directly under grounded equals true, so you don't get confused and do it within all of this, because that will mess everything up. You don't want it to be within this if statement. You just want it to be an if statement of itself in another if statement. Now the final part is setting that ball to false. So we just go to if counter equals 0, then we set that ball to false. So just like with our other combos, when that counter hits 0 or after a time of about a second, our animation is going to be set to false, and it's just going to go back to that idle state. Sweet. Now with the assumption that you already have your animation in the animator window over here, you're going to hit this plus, you're going to hit ball, and you're going to type in stinger as you did in the script. So your stinger is going to be your next parameter for your transition. And you're going to link that idle animation to your stinger animation. So going outwards, stinger is going to have to be true. Going inwards, stinger is going to be set to false. And I've deselected has exit time for each of those, just so that our animation doesn't have any lag. Loop time by default is going to be set to off, and we're just going to keep it that way. Otherwise things would get pretty goofy. But we're not done yet. We need to create that hitbox or that hit detection for our stinger attack. But we're not done yet. We gotta add that hitbox or hit detection for our stinger attack. So how are we gonna do that? Well, we just do the same exact thing we did last time. So we had that hit detection as that prefab right there. We got our stinger detection. You're just gonna right click in the scene, create a game object, maybe a cube instead of a sphere. I feel like a cube would use up less resources. And then once you have your game object, it's gonna have some type of collider attached to it. Make sure that that collider is set to is trigger. Might as well rename your game object, so I'm gonna pull it up here so the inspector looks the same. So I called mine stinger detection. Then the next thing you're gonna do is create a new tag. Go to add tag and hit that plus icon. You call it stinger, and you're gonna have to make the spelling of that consistent with what we're gonna do next. So just hold that, make sure that you understand that your tag stinger is just called stinger. Don't put like a 1, don't leak this up or something, because you will mess yourself up. Alright, so we got this punch missile script. So that is just a script that we've had before on our hit detection. All it does is manage the speed and the lifetime of our game object. As you can see here, the speed of our punch missile this time is a lot slower, but it has a slightly longer lifetime. That's because there is a bit of a startup time on our stinger animation, so I wanted to make sure that it synced together pretty nicely, and I found that these were the correct settings for that. Add a rigid body, don't get caught out like me. Make sure you got a rigid body, and then set use gravity as off. Don't worry about any of these constraints because our collider is set to is trigger. This is not going to get affected by any collisions and swept off course. Once you've created your prefab, you're just going to drag it into the folder there. I've already got my prefab, so I will not do that. And then you're going to take your prefab from the folder and put it where it says stinger missile. Now how are we going to make this stinger actually hit our enemy? Well, simple answer, we just go to our enemy hurt script. In our enemy hurt script, we have that first case, which is hit. You're going to create a new case, just copy and paste it like that. Obviously copying the C2. You paste it in. Oh, I'm good at that. You paste it in, you call it stinger, just as you did before. If you did it in Elite, I don't know why, but hey, if you did it like this, then more power to you. Just make sure you make that spelling consistent with what you actually put for your tag, and let me know how that goes for you. Right, so the tag referenced here is our stinger tag. Enemy body, add relative force. Now we're going to use a vector 3 again, but it's not going to be as we had it before, so it's not going to be timed recoil. We're going to get a solid idea of the forces that we're putting in, so I'm not going to do it times recoil this time. You can if you're comfortable with using that, but I'm just going to set these values up quite manually. Now if we hover over add relative force, it's going to give us some insight into where our float should go. So the first one is the x-axis, we don't want any movement there. The next one is the y-axis, and after that is the z-axis. The y-axis deals with movement vertically, so up and down, and the z-axis deals with our movement forward and back. On the y-axis, I put a force of about 450. Because this stinger is going to launch our enemy into the air. Oh, there's an alternative title for it. Yeah, you can call it a launcher too. Anyway, it's going to launch your enemy into the air. And I did -75. Otherwise, it's just going to land on our head, or it's just going to get messy. Trust me. Experiment around with these numbers, but trust me, it gets messy. Once you've got that set up, make sure you save your script and return to Unity. Have a play around, and you should see results similar to these. Alright, so I have my enemy here. Boom. They moved back a little bit. They got launched into the air. Great. Now how can our player, not our player character, how can our actual player capitalize off of that and have a fun experience doing that? Well, we implement those aerials. Now how are we going to implement those aerials? We're just going to rinse and repeat, to be honest. So you should have your animations for your aerial combos in the animator. And what we're going to do now is just get comfortable with using our combo system. Alright, so where do all great combos start? Well, they start in our script. We're going to have that public game object, Ariel missile. Don't touch anything else. Go straight to void update. And because these are Ariel combos, hey, let's pat ourselves on the back a little bit because we actually prepared ourselves for this eventuality. Now, if we didn't have a split between what happens when we're grounded and what happens when we're not grounded, we'd probably struggle with this. But we figured it out. It's all good. We don't have to attach our Ariel combos to a different key. We just use the same key because we can do it in grounded equals false. Now, in grounded equals false, you are going to implement a couple of things that we had from grounded equals true. First thing you're going to want is this little statement along with that little statement. So both of these if statements are going to go straight into this grounded equals false script. So you're going to have that function for the max delay reset, which says if the time we last clicked is greater than max delay, then our counter becomes 0. And we're going to have counter equals 0 and all these false statements in here. First, help yourself out. You probably experience some lag and weirdness if you don't put anim.setBall stinger in here. So just copy it and paste it over from grounded equals true, just to make sure that if you're in the air, your stinger is going to be false. And then we have a really easy part. Just go straight up into your script, copy and paste about 3 lines or however many combos you have here. Just copy that many. So I have 3 combos in the air. So I'm going to copy these from if grounded is true, and I'm just going to paste them under my counter. And these are all the if statements for what to do if our counter is 1, 2, and 3. I've only got 3 combos. Help myself out a lot because if I had 7 combos again, I'd probably go insane. Of course, we're going to change those anim.setBall statements to Ariel 1, Ariel 2, Ariel 3, or just a different name. Make sure you're not using the same parameter. And yeah, those are all going to be set to true under these statements. You instantiate that new game object that we created, which is our Ariel missile. So instantiate Ariel missile each time. And this time I have gone player body, add relative force, and that relative force is going to appear in the form of this vector3, which is going to say, alright, x-axis, no movement. Y-axis, we're going to have a little boost in the air of about a force of 200, and we're going to move forward by a force or a boost of 100. So that gives us kind of a floaty movement in the air. You know, if you've played games like Kingdom Hearts or literally any action adventure game, then you know that you have those floaty air combos that just help give you a little bit more airtime. So that's how we add a little bit of airtime. So really we've killed a lot of birds with 1 stone. We have our animation set up, we have our hitbox set up, and we have our movement in the air set up. Let's go straight to our enemy hurt. No need to rush back to Unity quite yet. And we're going to create another case, and this time we're going to call it Ariel. And under relative force, we're going to try to match that force that our player game object is having in the air once they make one of these attacks. So that's a force of 200 up, and we're going to have a little bit of a vortex kind of thing happening. So vortex, maybe some people are unfamiliar with that term. If you've ever played a game like Street Fighter 4, I think it's the vanilla version, you'll know that I think Rufus had some pretty infamous vortex combos. Now vortex stuff pretty much means that you're going to stick to the attacker, so they're going to suck you in as they're doing the damage, and that's what we want here, so that we don't blow away our enemy. We want to actually have a combo, not just a single hit. So I put that little feature for a vortex on our enemy game object. Now I probably cut it out of the video, but I took a real long pause and looked at this piece that I'm talking about right here and realized that that needs to be positive. And I was struggling on doing my aerial combos, to be honest, because of it. Now we've got a proper vortex happening. So our enemy game object, because they're always facing our character, they're going to move a force of 10 towards us each time we land a hit with our aerial combo, which will give a vortex effect, and as I said, we'll be able to complete that combo. Once you have that done, save your script. And one thing I neglected to mention is that you're going to want to set all your aerial combos to false under this counter equals 0. So in the same place where you set stinger to false, you're going to set all your aerial combos to false also. That means when our counter goes down to 0, our aerial combos stop. And I'll demonstrate what that means for us in a second. Alright, now that you're back in Unity, the final thing you'll want to do is make that aerial detection. You're going to want a tag that matches what you made in your script. So my script said that the tag was Ariel to interact with our enemy hurt script. So I've got that Ariel tag there. Rigid body, collider, set to his trigger, no gravity, and you got to put that punch missile script on there too. Mess around with these values here and there until you're satisfied with what you've got. I set the speed to 20 and the lifetime a little bit longer because it's a little trickier to get these aerial combos in, so I sacrificed a little bit of spacing accuracy for playability. Of course, you're going to set up those parameters in your animator. So all of those parameters are again bulls, and you're going to link them to your idle animation. So all of these combos are really going to link from our idle animation. We'll probably make a ready to fight kind of state, but for now we'll just do them off of the idle animation. So if it's true, go from idle to your attack, set that parameter up, set it to true, no exit time, and then you go true, true through your animations, and all of the false stuff goes straight back to your idle animation. I'm just going to run through a couple of our moves. So this one is the stinger, and then this one is our first hit, this is our second hit, and this is our full aerial combo. So you see that we've got a little bit of that floatiness that we find in something like, I haven't played Bayonetta, but I imagine Bayonetta or even a couple of fighting games have that happening. So there we are, that's an aerial combo, that's the part, that's the tutorial. Guys, thank you so much, it's been really exciting doing all of this stuff. Just gonna add one more feature, one last little bit that's gonna make all of this a lot easier in the next part. Guys, thank you so much for sticking with this tutorial, and I hope that tutorials like this on the channel can be a catalyst to whatever projects you guys have going on at home. But again, I'm going to make this short because I'm pretty sure the video's been quite long. This has been Pressing the Button. I'm signing out. Thanks for the support. Press on and keep creating.